First tonight, a simply miraculous survival story. After a 1 metre long piece of thick steel lodged in his skull, Keiran Dodge should be dead. How he's still alive is remarkable.
Felt something hit my head and my eyes went blurry. Yeah, when my eyes sort of straightened up, I realised there was a pole hanging over my head.
You were so lucky.
Every time it moved, I could feel it sort of moving in my head.
An everyday job on a building site was suddenly transformed into an astounding medical emergency today.
Like it sort of went straight in between your two halves of your brain.
When a young man was hit by a flying piece of steel, it penetrated the middle of his forehead.
I started to panic a bit, yeah. Just wondering if he was going to make it.
Honestly thought maybe we might lose him.
Trapped in a 21-tonne excavator with a metre-long piece of steel reinforcement embedded in his skull, 18-year-old construction worker Keiran Dodge was lucky to escape with his life.
It did go in 8 centimetres, which is a long way.
Keiran, how much do you remember of that day?
Most of it.
What were you doing on the day? Take me through it.
I was driving an excavator, loading concrete out on site.
And obviously it had steel work as a sort of a forming for it, did it?
Yeah, it was all through it. In the wall, in the footing and everything sort of thing.
So what had you been told to look out for when you were doing that sort of work too?
You just got to watch for bits of steel flying around, because it's like a spring that just goes anywhere. Bits of concrete, all that sort of stuff.
So what happened in that moment?
I didn't really see the steel coming, but I went to pick up another bucket and felt something hit my head. I just thought I got hit with like a rock or something.
6 weeks ago, on a Friday morning at 10:30, this freak accident occurred. Everyone watched in amazement as Keiran remained calm and conscious throughout his traumatic ordeal, gripping firmly to that piece of steel Rio.
I was hanging on to it. I sort of turned the machine off and shut that down, so that was sort of safe.
I would think that your first instinct, when something like that's sticking in your head, would be to pull it out.
Yeah, well, I was going to, but all the blokes on the site sort of said, no, just don't touch it.
Who was it that told you not to?
One of the truck drivers. He just goes, don't touch it. He goes, just leave it. So I want to get it out. He goes, no, you can't touch it, just leave it until the ambulance get here. And they'll do what's right.
He probably saved your life. Were you asking, you know, how far in is it?
Where is it? What is it? How far is it in?
He asked someone to take a photo with their phone and show him.
Yeah, I wanted to have a look at it.
To see, he didn't know what it was. Like, can you take a photo so I can see what it is? And they said, no, I don't think we should do that. And
I mean, you were a little bit shielded by the horror of what was happening because you couldn't see yourself, could you?
Yeah, I couldn't see it, yeah.
So were you trying to assess from the reaction of all the blokes around you how bad your situation was?
Yeah, well, I knew it was pretty bad. They were sort of all standing there, like, shaking and...
Keiran's father, Craig, took the call no parent wants.
He goes, oh, there's been an accident and Keiran's had an accident. There's a bit of Rio gone into his head. And I said, how bad is it? He goes, oh, it's bad. And I just said, oh, is he conscious? And he goes, yeah, hang on a minute, and puts the phone up and Keiran sings out, oh, I'm all right, Dad. And
when we first arrived, Keiran was sitting up in the excavator holding onto the metal bar.
Paramedics Carl Kibbe and Dave Lambert were the first to respond to the 000 call.
It was definitely very confronting at first sight. It was one of those, okay, that is actually quite a large bar that's sticking inside somebody's head.
But it wasn't long before there was a small army of emergency service workers on site, undertaking the delicate and dangerous task of getting Keiran out of the excavator. Although he was talking and his vital signs were fine, they knew he was still in a lot of danger.
My major concern was how far it had gone in, if there was any further neurological or brain damage that could occur, and the symptoms and side effects of that. So having Keiran in that excavator cabin with a metre-long pole and him starting fitting, you can imagine a metre of steel piping thrashing around in the cabin.
I would imagine that you'd be quite frightened.
When all the paramedics and all that got there and started getting all their machines out, I sort of started getting a bit worried.
When the paramedics arrived, did you think that they would get it out?
Yeah, I kept trying to get him to cut it. I kept telling him, you've got to cut it, it's too big, I can't hang on to it.
When the head injury retrieval doctors arrived, they attempted to cut some spare steel bar and found that there was too much vibration, and their concern was that that could cause further damage to Keiran's brain.
While these guys were doing some extrication work, we're getting prepared for the worst case scenario and having our drugs laid out, having our kits laid out. So if things deteriorate, everything's in place, ready to go.
As a team, they began the slow process of freeing Keiran, all aware that any sudden movement could have been fatal.
You don't have to move the bottom of it like the tiniest little bit, and the bit in my head would move, if like a fair bit, because it's so big.
One of the paramedics tried to hold on to it for you, didn't he?
Like, because he was shaking a little bit, because I could feel it moving, and I just said, oh, I got to hold it. My right eye would go real blurry.
He sat there, he did everything we asked, we worked with him. Yep. He held onto the bar, he let us know if it moved.
He provided several suggestions on the best method to get him out of the excavator and to the ambulance.
It was just over an hour before Keiran was removed from the cabin.
Once we got him out of the digger, that was part one done. But then, yeah, getting him to the hospital, getting him out of the ambulance even was pretty tricky, to be honest.
With the steel rod firmly lodged and Keiran still holding it, he was transported at 12:02 p.m. by ambulance to Royal North Shore Hospital.
Oh, I didn't know he was coming. Someone showed me a picture on a phone of him in the emergency room with a pole sticking out of his head. And my immediate response was, what's he like?
Neurosurgeon Dr. Nicholas Little had some very delicate surgery ahead of him.
We needed to try and get some scans, and they said it's impossible because the pole is over 1 metre long and he won't fit in the scanner.
With only one X-ray, it was impossible to establish how much damage had been done. At this stage, Keiran's mother, Keiran, had just arrived at the hospital. When you heard exactly what he'd been through, that he'd hung on to this damn thing all the way to the hospital, what did you think about all of that?
Lots of bad things going through my head, so...
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Did you think were you thinking you might lose him?
Yeah.
Were you waiting at the hospital by the time he got there?
I was there.
Did you see him with the pole in his head?
Yeah. I heard a bit of a commotion. I thought, that's got to be Keiran. I've seen half the stretcher with people around him everywhere, so I just seen him and he's looking around. I just rubbed his arm and said, "You'll be right, mate." And I got to break down a little bit, and I just sort of pushed him away and he just gave us a wave. And...
That's an image you'll never forget?
No, I'll still picture it.
The main danger is you don't know what's going to happen when you pull it out. Is he going to get torrential arterial bleeding out of the hole, which can be difficult to stop. It can cause bleeding elsewhere, it can cause a lot of swelling in the brain.
The surgery took 2.5 hours. Every move critical.
To remove it, I had to cut a ring around it to get it out, which allowed me to pull it out, and then when you pull it out, I had a bigger avenue to look back in case he bled straight out after it. When I cut around it, it got very loose, as you'd expect. I weighed about a kilo and a half.
After the pole was removed, Keiran was rushed off for a scan, which finally showed the full extent of the impact.
3 more centimetres or more, it would kill him.
The rusty steel bar, which was more than 1 inch thick, had pierced his forehead like a spear. It was lodged 8 centimetres into his skull, just millimetres away from his pituitary gland, carotid artery and optic nerves.
The dark area here is the hole in the skull, and back here is where the pole came to. I was very happy because you can tell from this that he does not have a substantial brain injury.
They said, "Oh, we've got took the breathing tube out, he's breathing on his own." He woke up out of anaesthetic like he should, like everyone does, and they spoke to him and he spoke back.
That must have felt like Christmas, hearing that news. But Keiran's situation was still serious.
He still had the risk of seizures, infection, bleeding secondarily, and other issues that I couldn't know at that time.
Lucky boy.
Closely monitored, Keiran seemed to make a remarkable recovery.
Hello, how are you, Keiran?
Every day getting stronger.
I'm here to give you all your discharge paperwork. So this is one of the medications. Because you've had a head injury, you're at risk of having seizures.
Once again astounding everyone, he was able to leave the hospital just 2 weeks after the accident.
Bye. Thanks for everything.
Heading straight home to a warm welcome from family and friends.
Welcome home.
Hello. It's just so great to have him home. I can't believe it.
Yeah, his whole family love him very much.
I shook for a week. I just couldn't stop shaking. It was terrible. Didn't think we'd have it.
You know, that's taking up a big part of your head. You were very, very, very lucky. I mean, that's for a random act to miss everything the way it did. It's quite astonishing, really, isn't it?
Mm.
What are the long-term side effects of what has happened to you?
Yeah, my balance and movement's all pretty good. If I sort of bend over or something for too long, I'm not allowed to pick anything up. So you feel like the pressure, because my brain can sort of move more than it usually can. You feel that? Concentration, can't concentrate on things for too long.
What about your taste and smell?
Yeah, can't taste nothing or smell nothing.
So it'd be no fun to cook for him, Keiran?
No.
Nan cooked a good baked dinner the other night, but could have gave him sausage sandwiches, would have made no difference.
It looked good on the plate, but...
Do you think back on what you did now and are you a bit amazed at yourself?
Yeah, I am really, yeah.
I'm amazed at you. I think half the country all the country was amazed at you on that day, looking at those photographs of you with this thing stuck in your head.
Onto a pole.
Do you marvel at how he was able to, you know, stay so tough and strong and hang on to the thing?
I can't believe it. I had mates ring me up because I'd never seen the footage and just didn't want to see it.
You know, I'm looking at your scars and the surgeon's done a really good job on your scars.
They tried to hide it.
But you won't be able to hide that one in the middle.
No, I won't be able to hide the one in the middle.
You could come up with some really good stories for how you got that one.
I've already come up with a few.
What are they?
I've been
Superman.
shot. Yeah.
A Man of Steel, Superman.
Do you love it here?
It's good.
Keiran has one more surgery ahead of him. Once all the swelling has gone, Dr. Little will repair the hole in his skull, and he's confident Keiran will make a full recovery.
If we start here,
It goes up.
all the way up in your hair, right, okay. My goodness, they've done a neat job. And all the way over to here.
Back down to there.
Well,
I think they've got to do it again.
Oh.
When they put the bone back in, they'll have to cut me and fold all that down.
Is that tender?
No.
Let's get a sense of where the hole is. Oh, okay. Yep, bone, hole.
Yeah, you can sort of...
So that's big.
Yeah.
One thing is certain, if it wasn't for Keiran's co-workers and these men in those critical first moments, he would not be here today.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, fella.
You too. Thanks for all your help.
No problem at all.
Thank you. Thanks.
Remember much from it?
Oh, little bits. Yeah.
What do you remember?
Oh, I really seen you.
Yeah?
Yeah, there.
Do you recall wanting to drive the excavator out of the construction site to help us, to make it easier to get you out of where all the broken concrete and rubble were?
Any word on when you're going back to work? Do you want to go back to work?
Oh, I'd like to, but not
Same
for a
job?
while. Yeah, same job.
Back on the tools? That's a true success story. If we can get them back to where they were before the incident, then that's great news, and that's a success story for us and obviously for Keiran.
Are you surprised to see him looking so well now? It's only a few weeks later.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been keeping tabs a little bit through the hospital, doing follow-ups to see how you're going.
I've worked in intensive care at North Shore where you were, and I've seen people with not dissimilar injuries. To come away as you are now talking to us this soon afterwards is remarkable, I think.
Couldn't have gone to a nicer guy.
Yeah.
So
it's just great to see you stood here today.
These are the guys who saved your life.
Yes, they are.
We appreciate everything.
Thanks.
He's such a lucky guy and he showed such presence of mind on the day.
To pick up another bucket and felt something hit my head. I just thought I got hit with like a rock or something.
6 weeks ago on a Friday morning at 10:30, this freak accident occurred. Everyone watched in amazement as Keiran remained calm and conscious throughout his traumatic ordeal, gripping firmly to that piece of steel Rio.
I was hanging on to it, and I sort of turned the machine off and shut that down, so that was sort of safe. I could feel it sort of moving in my head.
An everyday job on a building site was suddenly transformed into an astounding medical emergency today.
Like it sort of went straight in between your two halves of your brain.
When a young man was hit by a flying piece of steel, it penetrated the middle of his forehead.
I started to panic a bit, yeah. Just wondering if he was going to make it.
Honestly thought maybe we might lose him.
Trapped in a 21-tonne excavator with a metre-long piece of steel reinforcement embedded in his skull, 18-year-old construction worker Keiran Dodge was lucky to escape with his life.
It did go in 8 centimetres, which is a long way.
Keiran, how much do you remember of that day?
Most of it.
What were you doing on the day? Take me through it.
I was driving an excavator, loading concrete out on site.
And obviously it had steel work as a sort of a forming for it, did it?
Yeah, it was all through it. In the wall, in the footing and everything sort of thing.
So what had you been told to look out for when you were doing that sort of work too?
You just got to watch for bits of steel flying around, because it's like a spring, it just goes anywhere. It's the concrete, all that sort of stuff.
So what happened in that moment?
I didn't really see the steel coming, but
First tonight, a simply miraculous survival story. After a 1 metre long piece of thick steel lodged in his skull, Keiran Dodge should be dead. How he's still alive is remarkable.
Felt something hit my head and my eyes went blurry. Yeah, when my eyes sort of straightened up, I realised there was a pole hanging over my head.
You were so lucky.
Every time I moved,